The emergency beacon from Research Station Kethis 7 had gone silent 3 days ago. Myra Lorne stepped off the rescue shuttle onto cracked earth that still smoldered from atmospheric bombardment, her boots crunching against crystallized ash. The planet's twin suns beat down mercilessly, and she could already feel sweat pooling beneath her envirosuit. Scanning for life signs, her AI companion chirped in her ear. Minimal readings. Recommend extreme caution. Myra had heard the stories about Kethis 7. The researchers here had been studying the indigenous, Velrathi apex predators that hunted in packs, possessed claws that could slice through titanium, and had never shown anything remotely resembling mercy. The attack shouldn't have been surprising. What surprised Command was that the beacon had lasted 3 days before going dark. She found the station's outer perimeter breached, walls scored with massive claw marks. Inside, the facility was a graveyard. Equipment lay scattered and shattered. Emergency lights flickered weakly, but no bodies. That was unusual. Velrathi typically left remains. A sound made her freeze, a soft chittering, almost like purring. Myra turned slowly, hand moving to her plasma pistol. In the shadowy corner of the destroyed laboratory, 4 pairs of luminescent eyes stared back at her. Cubs. Velrathi cubs. They were each the size of a large dog, covered in silvery black fur that rippled with each breath. Their oversized paws hadn't yet grown into their adult proportions, and their ears too large for their heads swiveled toward every sound. One of them took a tentative step forward, sniffing the air. "Easy," Myra whispered, keeping her hand away from her weapon. Cubs meant adults nearby. She needed to leave, now. But as she backed toward the exit, the smallest cub let out a pitiful whine. Its leg was caught in twisted metal debris. The others circled it anxiously, trying to pull their sibling free with careful teeth. Myra hesitated. Every survival instinct screamed at her to run. Velrathi adults could return any moment. But the cub's whimpering cut through her fear, striking something deeper, something fundamentally human. "I'm going to regret this," she muttered, approaching slowly with her hands raised. The cubs tensed, their small claws extending. "Easy, I'm here to help." It took 20 minutes to carefully bend back the metal and free the injured cub. During that time, the other 3 watched her with unnerving intelligence. When the smallest finally limped free, it looked up at Myra with those luminous eyes and made a soft churring sound. Then it grabbed her boot with its teeth and dragged it under a collapsed desk. "Hey!" Myra reached for it, but the cub had already scrambled away. Before she could react, the other 3 had grabbed her second boot and her equipment pack, playing keep-away with practiced coordination. "Give those back!" They didn't. Instead, they scattered deeper into the facility, her belongings clutched like trophies. Myra stood there in her tactical socks, surrounded by the ruins of a research station on a hostile alien world, and laughed, despite herself. Unbelievable. Mugged by puppies, she had backup boots on the shuttle, but that meant crossing 300 meters of volcanic rock fields in inadequate footwear. The alternative was chasing juvenile apex predators through a dark, unstable facility. Both options were terrible. She chose the shuttle. The terrain was worse than she'd anticipated. The volcanic glass was razor-sharp, and even through her reinforced socks, she could feel every jagged edge. She'd made it 50 meters when she heard the soft padding of paws behind her. Myra turned. All 4 cubs followed at a distance, the smallest limping slightly on its injured leg. When she stopped, they stopped. When she moved, they crept closer. "What do you want?" She called back. The largest cub, the one who'd first stolen her boot, sat down and tilted its head. In its mouth, carefully held, was her boot. It set the boot down, pushed it forward with its nose, then stepped back. The others did the same with her second boot and pack. Myra stared. "You're returning them?" The cubs made no move to approach further. They simply sat there, watching with those intelligent eyes that reflected the double sunlight, waiting. Understanding dawned slowly. Guilt they'd taken from someone who'd helped them, and now they were trying to make it right. "Well," Myra said softly, retrieving her belongings. "That's unexpected." She sat on a flat rock to put her boots back on. The cubs maintained their distance but didn't leave. When she started walking again, they followed not threateningly, but with the curious persistence of children who'd found something interesting. Myra contacted the shuttle. Change of plans. I'm bringing passengers. Negative, Command responded immediately. Velrathi are classified as cubs, orphan probably. The adults are gone. Myra glanced back at the 4 small forms trailing her. They're coming with me. The argument that followed was predictable: protocols, regulations, the danger. But Myra had spent 15 years in xenobiology, and she'd learned to recognize intelligence when she saw it. More importantly, she'd learned to recognize something rare or conscience. By the time she reached the shuttle, Command had reluctantly agreed to quarantine procedures. The cubs hesitated at the ramp, clearly afraid of the strange metal bird. The smallest, the one she'd freed, was the first to trust her, limping aboard on its injured leg. The others followed. 3 months later, Myra stood in the Interspecies Research Center on Terra Station, watching through reinforced glass as the cubs, now much larger, played with puzzle boxes designed to test their problem-solving abilities. Ravik, the lead xenobiologist, stood beside her, his forearms crossed in his species gesture of impressed contemplation. "Remarkable," Ravik said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into standard. In 3 months, they've learned basic standard comprehension, demonstrated tool use, and shown consistent evidence of moral reasoning. The Velrathi were never properly studied because they were too aggressive. But these cubs ... were orphaned before they learned aggression, Myra finished. They learned something else instead. Because of you, Ravik observed. You showed mercy when their own kind would not have. And they learned from it. The smallest cub, officially designated Velrathi 07, but privately named Scout by Myra, noticed her watching. It loped to the glass and pressed one massive paw against it. Myra pressed her hand opposite. Humanity has a saying, Myra said. Guilt is the price we pay for being capable of better, Ravik's translator hummed thoughtfully. Perhaps that is not uniquely human after all. On Kethis 7, the adult Velrathi had acted on instinct, on predatory programming millions of years old. But 4 cubs had learned something different from a human who'd chosen kindness over caution. They'd learned guilt. They'd learned return. They'd learned that strength could protect as easily as destroy. In the years that followed, those 4 would become the foundation of the first peaceful Velrathi-human alliance. They would bridge 2 species that should have been eternal enemies. And it all began with stolen shoes and the long walk of someone willing to be followed. Because that, Ravik would write in his groundbreaking thesis, was the truly human thing, not the absence of fear, but the choice to act with compassion despite it.